So the causes of acute pain are generally known. So all of you have probably already cut yourself, burned yourself, or broken a bone. And it's usually a symptom of several illness. So pain is necessary. In fact, it's protective. If you put your hand on something hot, basically it tells your body to remove your hand before your hand burns. So it's physiological, protective, and it's usually short term. Within 3 months, the pain is gone. Chronic pain, so there are different chronic pains, osteoarthritis, fibromyalgia. The causes are not always known or not well understood. The thing is that it's usually long-term pain, persistent, over 3 to 6 months, and it's pathological. It doesn't really have this protective role anymore. And very recently, it's been recognized as a disease by the World Health Organization. Just to give you a few numbers, a few figures about pain. So 1.5 billion people suffer from chronic pain as a disease worldwide. It's the first cause of long-term disability. That's very interesting. 68% of patients feel they are inadequately treated for their chronic pains. So that's quite a lot of patients. Basically, the doctors, I'll tell you about that later, have very few molecules, drugs to treat them. It starts with maybe paracetamol and things like that, and it goes very quickly to morphine and opioids. The cost of pain, so I've got the numbers for Europe, so 320 billion euros. So this includes consultations, drug, and care as well. And it doesn't include all the days of work, for example, and all sorts of things like that, which are indirect costs. Big thing, we hear about this in the news, 300% increase in opioid prescription over the past 20 years, basically due to the lack of analgesics. So the doctors, when you go and tell them you've been in pain for over 6 months, 1 year, they go straight to opioids. And the problem is that the misuse of these opioids is striking, and we have a 500% rise in deaths due to this opioid crisis. In fact, Trump, the American president, declared the war to opioids last year. So if we look at the therapeutic arsenal, so if we look, for my PhD, I studied Chinese medicine. And in fact, people used to use a lot of plants, herbs to treat themselves. So we can see that 300 years before Christ, poppy seeds, hams, or even the willow trees were used to treat pain. In the 1800s, of course, morphine was isolated, aspirin was isolated from these plants. In the 1900s, so we got non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, tramadol, so I noted all the opioids molecules, ziconotide as well. And in the past 20 years, there's been very little improvement, innovation. Mainly analgesic drugs have gone around the reformulation of analgesics. So you hear on TV, the fast-acting ibuprofen, for example, or based on association of known analgesic. Basically, between paracetamol and morphine, you don't have too much. You have maybe tramadol, and in between you have nothing. So instead of escalating from one to the next, they do a mixture of the two, and so it gives you a step in between. There's been some new molecules, but they are for very specific type of pain. So it's time to innovate in the pain field. So 10 years ago, when I arrived in Clermont-Ferrand, I met with some pharmacologists. They were very famous experts in pain. They had a clinic which was specialized in pain, and so they saw many patients that did not react to pain medicines. And we decided that we should stop just looking at the patient, but go back to the bench and try to develop some new drugs to give back to the patient. So we call that translational research. And so we created this Analgesia Institute. At the beginning, we were just 9 members, and today we have over 15 pain clinics in France, and we are starting to have collaborators outside of France. So we have different topics we're interested in. I'll tell you a couple of examples. So for example, e-health. So we have developed a mobile application to follow chronic patients because the chronically painful patient, he remembers the pain from yesterday, from last week, but not from last month. And he sees his doctor only every 6 months. So we need to have a monitoring of his pain every day to see whether it's impacted by the weather, by his feeling, by whether he worked a lot, whether he exercised. So we have this program on. We are studying novel combinations. We are developing novel preclinical models. For example, we have a new model for cancer pain. Bioanalysis of analgesic due to the opioid crisis, because we have a lot of patients that arrive with overdose, so we need to identify straight away what drugs they've taken. We are also repositioning some new chemical entities. So, for example, one of our work is to reposition riluzole as a pain medicine. Nutrition, we found that a lot of things that we eat are pro-inflammatory, so we're trying to identify maybe the foods that are good for you if you are a painful patient. Traditional medicine, so this is back to our roots as well, looking at the plants that are used in different medicine, in Chinese, in African, in Indian, and trying to, so we go backwards, we look at the plant, look at the vivo effect, and try to identify the target. And today I want to tell you a bit more about the novel targets that we have discovered and we are working on. So we are working on several targets, PDZ proteins, for example, calcium channels, CGRP. And today I want to tell you about our work on the potassium channels. So these potassium channels, TREC1, so this was published by our collaborators, Alain Chalier in Clermont-Ferrand, and they found that TREC1 was involved in the morphine-induced analgesia. So we have animals that express TREC and some animals that do not express TREC. Okay, and what we found is that when we treated the animals, they reacted differently to pain. Basically, when we treat them with morphine, here we managed to have an analgesic effect, antinociceptive effect, so we relieve the pain. But in the TREC knockout, or in the mice that do not express the TREC, we see that this analgesic effect is lowered. In fact, we did this on different models. On the hot plate test, we see the same difference. The analgesic effect is lower. On post-operative model as well, we see that when we treat with morphine, we have a good relief of pain. But the mice that do not express TREC, they have a less relief. And this was done on neuropathic pain as well. So what we conclude from this study is that when we treat the mice with morphine, of course it will modulate the opioid receptor, we get analgesia. But if we do the same treatment to the mice that do not express TREC, the analgesic effect disappears or is a lot lower. Next, they studied the adverse effects that are related to morphine and opioids. So, for example, constipation. So, again, we have treated mice with morphine, the ones that express and the ones that don't express TREC. And here we see that the response is exactly the same. So, the mice treated with morphine remain constipated. They still have respiratory depression, and the opioid dependence is not altered at all. So the conclusion is that if we treat with morphine the mice, they retain all the opioid adverse effects. So from this work, if I summarize it here, we wondered whether activating directly the TREC1 channel could lead to analgesia without the adverse effects of the opioids. And that was the hypothesis and the challenge. So we started, like every medicinal chemist, to screen molecules in the lab, nothing came out. And so we looked at the literature. We started this program in 2008, and at the time there was just a couple of molecules that were known to activate a TRK, and amongst them we looked at those that had an analgesic effect. So one of them that was very good was riluzole, but we noticed later that it was not a direct activation of TRK1, and also it's a drug that is known for another disease, and we have another program to look at this. So we concentrated on the CDC molecule here, and that's how our program started. So a bit of chemistry. So basically, when we have a lead compound like this, what we do is first we try to elucidate what we call the pharmacophore. So we try to identify the parts of the molecules that are responsible for the biological activity that we observe. So usually we simplify the molecule and we try and see if some parts are important or not. Next, once we have found like the minimal pharmacophore, we try to optimize the drug-like properties. So here we are talking about drugs that have an effect on pain. So we are in the category of CNS drugs. So we have to respect some kind of permeability, some solubility, etc. So on this program, over 10 years, we made almost 200 different analogs of these CDC molecule. And the different colors is because those are the parts of the molecule that we changed. So basically, we modified what we call the aromatic ring, different substituents, different tetracycles. The middle part of the molecule was modified as well. The blue part as well, we made it shorter with just the acids and some different chains. We changed the atoms here and we changed the nitro here. In fact, what we noticed is that sometimes a very little change, for example, just changing the oxygens for a carbon, completely changed the biological activity of the molecule. We completely lost the biological activity. And so, because we had many molecules, we made 4 categories. The ones that were activators and the ones that were analgesics. And of course, the ones that were interesting were the ones in this category that were both activators and analgesic. And you see that that's not many molecules amongst all the ones we've made. So among these 9, we did further studies. I'm not going to have time to talk about everything, but some of them caused some cardiotoxicity, so we eliminated them. Some others were totally insoluble. It was very difficult to work with, so we eliminated them as well. And we were left with just 3 molecules. So those are the 3 molecules we were left with. So we see that they do modulate and activate the TRK1 channel. So that was done by electrophysiology by the team of Florian Lesage in Nice. And then we did 2 tests of analgesic activity, the acetic acid induced rifts and the hot plates, and we compared to morphine. So basically, most of the molecules were pretty good. They displayed some analgesic activities. We also looked at the selectivity among the K2P channels. Nothing obvious. Maybe most of the drugs were activating both TRK1 and TRK2, maybe to a lesser extent TRK, and to absolutely no activation of TASC3. I had to show you a synthesis as well. So basically, from this data, we had these 3 molecules, and the cost of preclinical development is quite expensive. So we decided to continue with RNE28, and so that's why I showed you the synthesis, just to show you that it's a very simple synthesis, and we made most of our compounds like this. We just protect the acid with an ester, we do a condensation, and then we just protect. In fact, we try to do the direct synthesis, and it works as well. So in 1 step, in 2 days. And so we've made about 8 kilograms of this molecule. Okay, when you approach a pharmaceutical company, they say, okay, that's nice, but all the tests were done in academic lab. So I think they don't really trust us. So in orange, these are the assays we did in-house, and so we had to externalize the assay. And so INS Biotech is a company that is based in Clermont-Ferrand as well, and they developed this algogram Okay, it's only based on n equal 4. It's really a test just to screen and to help you decide on a type of pain. And so basically, what was satisfactory is that the molecule is not active on healthy rats, so that's good. We don't observe any sedation either, but we have a pretty good activity on most of the models. Here was very strange because on the Brennan model, they got induction of pain, and we got a good inhibition of pain. So, and when we compared the protocols, we don't do exactly the same way. Interesting as well, we finally tested the analgesic activity of our molecule on mice that expressed and do not express TREC, and so we see again the difference in activity between the two. And so we conclude that indeed by activating TREC1 with RNE28, we do get analgesia. Of course, the next question is, do we have side effects, and do we have the adverse effects of morphine? Okay, it's a very crowded slide, but basically looking at the constipation, we have the vehicle, so we are more or less the same as the vehicle and not the same as morphine, so we have no constipation, no sedation as well, no respiratory depression, and we do not observe any opioid dependence either. So we have validated the fact that the activation of TREC by RNE28, we do get analgesia, and we do not observe the side effects related to morphine. The next question for us, because we have a nice tool here to study TREC1, to study analgesia. The next question was, where does it bind? Because now we would like to improve this molecule. For the moment, it's just a tool. And so we worked with, again, Florian Lesage in Nice, who has different chimeras of TREC1 track. And basically, the different chimeras, which show that we get an activation on the chimera 4 and 6. And so we can just conclude that the N-terminal of the TREC1, and maybe more than the N-terminal of TREC1, are involved in the activation of the channel by our molecule. So today this is a big question. We want to understand how this drug works because we want to pursue. And so, sorry, I took your slides. You were just before me. So there was a very nice study in Science that we saw, and you were talking about the negatively charged activators. And in fact, we made the salt of RNE28. And when we saw the paper, we looked at the distance between what is our aromatic ring and our negatively charged moiety here. And we were very impressed to come with 5.3 angstrom, which is exactly the same distance here. And so now we think that maybe we are lacking this part here, which is symbolized in gray, and maybe that's where we are heading next. Okay, so I hope I convinced you that maybe we could activate TREC to get analgesia and maybe to develop new drugs. Today, this molecule is a good tool to continue this work. And we were very lucky that we patented these molecules, and a company called Inopain, so we licensed this patent to Inopain, and they are pursuing the preclinical trials on this. So, of course, I need to thank all my team. So we are at the Institute of Chemistry in Clermont-Ferrand. We collaborate with Professor Echali in Neurodol. I told you also that we collaborate with Florian Lesage, who is in Nice. Those are all the fundings we got, the company and the people that we have licensed the patent to. Just to show you the team, so quite a lot of you. This was a Christmas dinner in December, and we also welcome people from abroad. And just to tell you where Clermont-Ferrand is, because you probably don't know. So if you look at France, we are right in the middle here. So we have a region which is full of volcanoes. In fact, we have been labeled, I don't know how you say, World Heritage by UNESCO about 2 years ago. If you drink Volvic water, this is the picture that you get on your water. This is our Puy de Dôme. On top of it, there is an antenna, and some of my colleagues have a lab there because we also study the clouds, environmental chemistry, and so we take samples of clouds there. So this is the kind of food that we eat, and that's what we are known for. In fact, everybody thinks that I live in my garden, there's a cow like this. Vercingétorix is one of the famous people who lived in our city. Michelin, maybe something that you know as well, the tires, and the rugby team. So we won a couple of weeks ago the European Cup. Sorry. Okay. And so if you want to come and visit us, we'll go hiking on these volcanoes. Thank you.
Hi, Hiro Kubo from NIPS Japan, and thank you for a beautiful presentation.
Thank you.
By the result of the chimeric analysis, you showed L-terminus cytoplasmic region is binding for the effect. Do you think it is a binding site or critical site to exert the effect? And also, have you ever tried molecular docking analysis?
Yes, the N-terminal, we don't know how it's involved. I have a lot of conversations with the pharmacologist who thinks it's just about the potassium going in and out, and I don't believe it's just that. I think probably the agonist must change the conformation of the channel and maybe either inhibit or encourage an interaction with something else. They are not convinced by this. In fact, if it would have been the C-terminal, I could have gained 1 point because I'm working on PDZ domains as well, and the C-terminal is often a partner. Here, we still don't know how it binds. Molecular docking, there are some structures, and we are doing molecular docking. In fact, there's a lot of activators now of TREC, and we can do molecular docking, but what would be more interesting is the QSAR study, so it's quantitative structure-activity relationship. And this, we are doing this at the moment.
So we have one question.
Thank you for your talk. It's very nice. I've got a comment which may sound very silly. Your parent scaffold, CDC, I mean, in a 2D, it looks like, even though it's not alkaloid, a little bit of capsaicin-like. I wonder whether the analogs, which were not TREC active but were proven to be analgesic, is there any mileage or potential for repurposing or screening against TRPV1 or any other channels which are sensitive to this kind of scaffold?
Yeah, I'm not sure I understood the whole.
So the CDC2,
yeah.
I mean, it looks like a little bit, it has got some substructures belonging to the capsaicin.
Yeah.
So you have made some analogs which were analgesic but not acting on TREC. So I wonder whether this can be repurposed or rescreened against some of the TRPVs and other things.
Yes, in fact, we have molecules that are very analogs from another project, which we brought back to this project and proved active as well. So yeah, we have some polypharmacology on some of them, and we have studied on other. So we have some that are activating N-glu, I think, I'm not glutamate something. And we have also tested curcumin because it's a very structural analog, but curcumin inhibits TREC. So it's really any small structural modification can completely change the biological activity from an activator to nothing, or even from an activator to an inhibitor. So modeling should help us understand.
Many thanks.
I think we better move on to the next talk. So thank you.